We just had an election here in our Virginia area, in the 2nd District of Virginia. It seems like Virginia Republicans do not want powerful leaders. So when they get somebody who is the 2nd most powerful person in the House of Representatives, they decide they want to take him out, and they did. And so the majority leader, who was representing a Virginia district, was defeated in a primary. Here in the 2nd District of Virginia, the most powerful person on the House Armed Forces Committee, the chairman of the subcommittee dealing with the Navy and the Air Force and the Marines, was beaten in a very ill-attended primary. It's amazing. Virginia Republicans don't like to have powerful people representing them. They want weak people. I don't understand it.
I don't understand that either. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it seems illogical. The people in Richmond who took out Eric Cantor were just so proud of themselves that they put an unknown academic in place of the 2nd most powerful man in the House, and they'll wait the rest of their lives to get somebody like that again. So anyhow, it makes me wonder. Well, also, it looks like the Republicans are intent on looking righteous at the expense of their leader. And it seems like if they continue to weaken Donald Trump, they will wind up losing everything. But it's a war of words between Donald Trump and the president. Trump blasted the president for being too politically correct and not using the words radical Islam when talking about terrorism. But Obama says that criticism is just a, quote, political talking point.
And investigators may bring charges against the wife of the shooter in Orlando as they're trying to find out if she had information that could have prevented his terrorist attack. Charlene Aaron has the story.
Federal prosecutors have convened a grand jury to investigate Noor Salman. The FBI has interviewed her in the days since Sunday's deadly mass shooting that killed 49 and wounded 53. Officials say Salman knew of her husband's deadly plans and did nothing to stop him, and allegedly went with her husband to buy ammo prior to the attack, and had recently gone to the Pulse nightclub with him at least once. And the shooting has raised terrorism as a major political issue once again. Hours after the attack, Donald Trump said the president should resign for refusing to use the words radical Islamic terrorism.
This Orlando attack was just absolutely horrendous, and yet he still doesn't even use the word of radical Islamic terror.
Tuesday, the president fired back.
There's no magic to the phrase radical Islam. It's a political talking point. It's not a strategy. Not once has an advisor of mine said, man, if we really use that phrase, we're going to turn this whole thing around. Not once.
And he went on.
They know full well who the enemy is. So do the intelligence and law enforcement officers who spend countless hours disrupting plots and protecting all Americans, including politicians who tweet.
Trump responded during a rally in Greensboro, North Carolina.
And I watched President Obama today, and he was more angry at me than he was at the shooter. The level of anger, that's the kind of anger he should have for the shooter and these killers that shouldn't be here.
With ISIS calling for attacks in America, the political battle over how to take on terrorism is certain to be a major issue all the way to November. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. It's been said, and it's rightly so, that both candidates are missing the point. The source of this problem is this ISIS, and the Islamic State in Syria, Islamic State in the Levant. The idea is that here is a radical group, and the way to stop this stuff is to destroy them. And that's going to take air power, and it's also going to take so-called boots on the ground. We can't obviously get sucked into the morass of another Middle East war, but what we can put is adequate forces to destroy ISIS where their headquarters are, namely in the parts of Iraq, northern Iraq, and also in Syria. And if we would beef up our Kurdish friends and inspire the Saudis something good would happen. But I understand that the administration isn't showing a kind face toward the Saudis and others in the Middle East that want to help us, such as El-Sisi in Egypt, is not getting a good reception either in Washington. And the political correctness says, well, you can't say anything about somebody else's religion. But ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that although there is a religious veneer in Islam, it is also a political system based on world domination. And if you read the Quran, you read the Hadith, you read the founding documents of Islam, it is clear what their plan is. It is to take over the world. And it also prescribes clearly that the infidels need to be killed. It's in their documents. So these radicals are not, distorting Islam. They are following carefully what the Quran says. Read it. Don't listen to political correctness and say, well, this is anti-religion and bigoted. That is what their documents say. And these people read their founding documents, believe firmly in what Muhammad wrote. It's in the Quran. They take that as gospel, and then they carry it out. And they're taught that in their many, many mosques and places where they gather. There's no question about it. So if we would deal with the source, something better would happen. Well, in other news, a former leader of the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, in Georgia, has taken a stand on the issue of transgender bathrooms, one of the pressing issues of our day. John Jessup has that story.
Pat, Maya Dillard-Smith says she's concerned about bathroom safety, period. But at the Georgia ACLU, she says that turned out to be a controversial position to take. After leading the civil rights organization for the past year, Smith is now out of a job. She spoke to CBN's Heather Sells about the so-called bathroom politics and how she's hoping to steer the public towards a healthy conversation on the issue.
Civil rights advocate Maya Dillard-Smith is speaking out for a safe space to talk about what should be the safest of spaces. For that, she's having to defend herself.
Nothing about my message, nothing about what I'm asking is anti-trans, anti-anybody. It's saying, can we have a broader conversation?
Smith came to Atlanta 1 year ago to head the ACLU in Georgia, ready to take on the toughest civil liberties cases of the day. But surprisingly, it was a personal family experience that led her to rethink one of the toughest issues.
I had an experience with my own daughters, taking them into a public restroom, where shortly after we were inside entered 3 transgender young adults. They were visibly male, and my children were visibly frightened.
That moment led her to ask a lot of questions in her new role at the ACLU. Smith says she didn't know much about the transgender issue and wanted to know especially about bathroom safety. That is, how can women and children be safe if any person can go into any facility?
I was just really curious about what it all meant. What does it mean for girls? What does it mean in schools?
The ACLU told CBN that it won't comment on Smith's case, but Smith says the organization did not welcome her questions, and that eventually led to what she calls her breaking point.
The conversation typically stops at you're either for or against. And if you don't line up in the polar binary positions, then you're just kind of left somewhere flapping around with thoughts and ideas.
Smith herself is a sexual trauma survivor. Her biggest concern that the ACLU and other liberal groups have placed transgender rights ahead of women's rights. It's a point that conservatives have made and liberals have shut down, accusing them of fear-mongering. Smith, with a bona fide track record of fighting for LGBT rights, is harder to ignore.
Am I a bigot because I'm a trauma survivor and I'm asking questions? Because I think that sends a dangerous message to hundreds of thousands of women and girls that their rights, their desires to be safe and comfortable in bathrooms don't matter either.
It's a tricky conversation, Smith admits, in part because of our political polarization. She's determined to do her part in reshaping it And that includes talking with CBN.
There were a lot of people that advised me not to sit down and have a conversation with you or to appear on the Christian Broadcast Network because it would make me appear more aligned with the right. But this isn't about me and my alignment. This is about whether or not we can have an honest conversation.
To that end, she's established a website and Facebook page to encourage civil discourse on public policy, starting with bathrooms. She says accomplishing that is worth fighting for and diminishes her job loss.
This is not about me and the ACLU. This is about reshaping a conversation. This is about broadening a conversation. And if my transition from the ACLU enables us to do that, then I'm okay with that.
Reporting in Atlanta, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thanks, Heather. Pat, an unlikely proponent of expanding the conversation.
Well, we got to do more than have a conversation, but I go into the court, or the American Center for Law and Justice goes into court against the ACLU and has beaten them on a number of occasions. But we've had conversation. I've interviewed the head of the ACLU, and I think I'm trying to remember exactly what the occasion was, but we had a dialogue, and a very nice lady. We got along very well together.
I love that lady. I think she's brave.
Yeah, she's terrific.
She makes sense. She's using common sense.
Well, that's what we need. We didn't have much common sense, by the way, when we negotiated with North Korea. We gave them a lot of aid, a lot of food, billions of dollars worth of hand up, because they were going to shut down their nuclear enrichment facilities, and they were going to play nice. Well, you've got pictures now of Kim Jong-un rejoicing at what they have done. Let's go to John for the story.
That's right, Pat. North Korea may have doubled its number of nuclear weapons in just the last year and a half, according to a report from the Institute for Science and International Security here in Washington. The London Daily Mirror reports the group estimates Kim Jong-un could have added 6 or more weapons by expanding nuclear production. North Korea promised in 2013 to start up all of its nuclear facilities again, and last month said that it will build up its nuclear weapons capability. Pat, North Korea continuing its defiant streak.
You know, I was thinking about that. I was either dreaming or thinking clearly about what to do. Sooner or later, something's got to be done, because those people have already said we're building nuclear weapons, bombs, and the delivery mechanism, the rockets, to take these things from North Korea to the United States and to blow us up. And they have clearly said that's what they intend to do, and they now have submarine-launched ballistic missiles, which are very, very deadly. And sooner or later, it seems like to me that we need a massive strike on North Korea. They worship this Kim Jong-un's grandfather. They worship him as Kim Il-sung. They worship him as a god, and his mausoleum is like a holy temple. And we should put a great big bunker-busting bomb right in the middle of it and blow it up, and then shut them down, because they threatened South Korea, and now they are, with their rhetoric, they're threatening America. Why would we let them continue to do this without some intervention? And we're just allowing them to continue. It is the most repressive state probably in the entire globe right now, and something needs to be done to curtail it. So, but are our people working on that? I doubt it very seriously. But we have troops in harm's way that are there on the 38th parallel, and it's a tripwire. If they come across into South Korea, we will be engaged in a major shooting war that we are not prepared to deal with.